Hi, friends. Welcome to the first writing podcast of the year. This writing podcast is on SOAPS tone. These are just some ideas to consider when you read and write. Every piece of writing that you create or that you read must have a writer, that's the person who writes it, and a reader, the audience who's going to read it. Effective readers know something about the speaker, that's the author or the writer of the piece, the context of the writing, the time and situation of the writing, we call that the occasion, the people that the author is addressing, in other words, their audience. Effective readers know something about the reason that the author is writing the piece, we call that the purpose. Effective readers know about the subject that the author is writing about. And effective readers understand the tone of the piece and how that tone impacts the meaning of the piece. Now, effective writers actually consider the exact same things when they write. And this podcast is meant to help you to be the effective writer that we're talking about. So to be an effective writer, just remember this acronym, SOAPS tone. So let's take a look at each component of SOAPS tone. S is the speaker. O is the occasion. Audience. Who is your intended audience? Who are you addressing in your writing? Purpose. What is the intended purpose of this piece? The last S is the subject. What is it that you're going to be talking about? And then finally, tone. And that's the tone that your piece is going to take. Are you going to come off sounding respectful, sounding angry, sounding delighted? That's going to be your tone. So when you write, if you remember SOAP's tone, that's going to help you be a more effective writer. Let's look at each one of these a little bit more closely. All right, so the speaker, that's you. Your writing is going to be impacted by your culture, your personal characteristics, and your interests. Here are some factors that are going to impact your writing. Your age, your experiences, your gender, your location, your political beliefs, your parents and peers, your education. And that is, believe me, friends, just a small list of the things that are going to go into how you write. The occasion. You need to be aware of the occasion of your writing, the social circumstances that created the need for the piece. Now, the circumstances around any piece of writing, yours in particular, is your geographical location, the current events that surround you, what's going on in the world during the time that you're writing the piece that you're going to write. Also, the cultural beliefs surrounding the writing. So any current modern day cultural stuff, for example, any of you might be familiar with a new Cheerios ad that just came out that shows a biracial set of parents. That is a social circumstance around which you are living. So the occasion of a piece of writing, for example, if you wanted to write to the Cheerios company, you could write to them around that occasion. And I know that some people have written to them to express praise that they are showing on their commercial the way that America actually looks today. There are others that are writing to Cheerios arguing about the fact that they don't want that to be displayed in the commercial. So that is the occasion around which people are writing to Cheerios these days. Your audience. You really want to be specific about the intended audience of your piece. Although, frankly, I do understand that for anything that I force you to write in my class, I am the initial audience. But what I'm trying to teach you is how to be aware of an authentic audience anytime that you write. Now, your audience will actually be impacted by the same factors that impact you, the author. Things like their age, their social class, their education, their past experience, their culture, their expectations, all of that you need to consider when you're considering who your audience is. For example, if I'm Walt Disney and I'm making a cartoon, and in my cartoon characters are out robbing people, that's something you'll want to consider. Who's the audience? Who's watching this? Your purpose. Be clear about your purpose. In other words, the why. Why are you writing down your ideas? It's got to be bigger than just the because my teacher is forcing me to. And again, you guys, I get it. I understand that I am forcing you to. But on the other hand, I won't be forcing you to at the end of this year. And ultimately, there's gonna come a time when there will be no teacher forcing you to. And then I will really want you to harken back to this lesson on purpose. Why are you putting pencil to paper? So possible purposes might include to entertain, to inform, to shock, to persuade, to educate, or to call people to some action. The subject. Be clear about your subject and what you want to say about that subject. Talking about the American presidency is probably a little bit too broad unless you're considering writing a volume of encyclopedias. So if you are not planning on writing a volume of encyclopedias, be very clear about what you want to say about the American presidency. Tone. Be super conscious of your tone, and that's how you want your audience to interpret your message. Tone can include humor, condescension, respect, anger. Tone is going to be affected also by your purpose and your audience. For example, if you're writing a letter to your best friend because you feel like they just stabbed you in the back, a tone of anger might be appropriate. If you are writing a letter to a teacher to indicate confusion around a grade and your desire to improve that grade, anger might not be the best way to go based on your purpose. If your purpose is to get something out of somebody, anger, condescension, those are maybe not your best bet. Maybe tone of respect or politeness might serve you better. So be aware that tone is intimately related to your purpose. Okay, we are going to take a look at this clip. This is from the 1980s cult classic, The Breakfast Club. And we're going to look for SOAPS tone in this particular piece of writing. So as you're taking notes, just consider each of those elements of SOAPS in terms of how this essay looked. And a little bit of background about the essay. These students have all been required to come to Saturday school, basically, for doing something wrong. You can see that guy in the background is their teacher. They don't like or respect him, and he has asked each of them to write an essay describing who they think they are. In the end of the show, they end up actually writing one essay that encapsulates all of their ideas.
All right, people, we're going to try something a little different today. We are going to write an essay of no less than 1,000 words, describing to me who you think you are.
Is this a test?
And when I say essay, I mean essay. I do not mean a single word repeated 1,000 times. Is that clear, Mr. Bender?
Crystal.
Good. Maybe you'll learn a little something about yourself. Maybe you'll even decide whether or not you care to return.
Yeah, I can answer that right now, sir. That'd be no for me, because...
Sit down, Johnson.
Thank you, sir.
My office is right across that hall. Any monkey business is ill-advised. Any questions?
Yeah, I got a question. Does Barry Manilow know that you raid his wardrobe?
Give you the answer to that question, Mr. Bender, next Saturday. Don't mess with the bull, young man. You'll get the horns.
Dear Mr. Vernon, we accept the fact that we had to sacrifice a whole Saturday in detention for whatever it was we did wrong. But we think you're crazy to make us write an essay telling you who we think we are. And you see us as you want to see us. In the simplest terms, with the most convenient definitions. But what we found out is that each one of us is a brain,
And an athlete,
And a basket case.
a princess, and a criminal.
Does that answer your question? Sincerely yours, The Breakfast Club.
So now that you've seen the clip, take a second to just jot down the elements of SOAPS tone in that piece of writing, just so that you're aware and you have some practice thinking about them. And in closing, in order to be an effective writer, you must be aware that every time you write, you will need to consider these components and adapt your writing depending on your purpose and your audience. Thanks so much. Hope you enjoyed it. We'll talk to you soon in class.